Before you spend another Australian 20-cent coin, stop for a second and listen carefully. Because right now, in your wallet, your pocket, maybe even sitting in a jar at home, there could be a piece of hidden wealth you're about to throw away without even realizing it. I'm serious. Some of these ordinary-looking coins are carrying a silent fortune, and almost nobody talks about them. Collectors are literally fighting over certain 20-cent pieces that people spend every single day like loose change. We're talking about real auction shock, coins that have quietly exploded into life-changing money. So, check your pocket now, because today we're exposing the top 3 most valuable and ultra-rare Australian 20-cent coins worth big money, and you absolutely do not want to spend these coins. Each coin we reveal gets rarer, more shocking, and more valuable than the last. And the final one has stunned collectors across Australia. Stay with me, because these coins change everything. Coin number 1. At first glance, the 1,980 Australian 20-cent coin looks completely harmless, plain, ordinary, forgettable. The kind of coin that slides across supermarket counters every day without anyone thinking twice. You've probably held one. You may have even spent one this week without a second thought. And that's exactly why this coin is so dangerous to ignore. Because hidden among the countless normal examples from 1,980, there exists a version that collectors are chasing with shocking intensity, a coin that has quietly climbed to an estimated market value of around $175,000 in very fine, well-preserved condition. Yes, you heard that right. A simple 20-cent coin, worth more than a luxury house deposit. And the terrifying part? Most people still think it's just pocket change. So whatever you do not spend this coin until you hear the full story. Because the year 1980 was not just another routine minting year for Australia. It was a period when the country was balancing major economic pressure and industrial shifts. Australia was dealing with the aftershocks of the global oil crisis and rising inflation that had shaken economies across the Western world throughout the late 1970s. Governments were tightening budgets. Industries were adjusting. And even national mints were feeling the strain. Inside the Royal Australian Mint, production lines were working intensely to meet the public demand for circulating coins. Millions of Australians relied on small denominations for daily transactions, bus fares, groceries, newspaper stands, vending machines. Coins were moving fast. But when a mint operates under pressure, something interesting begins to happen. Machines run longer. Ds wear down faster. Production tolerances stretch. And in years like that, small differences can quietly create coins that later become collector legends. Now let's talk about what the 1,980 Australian 20-cent coin actually looks like. Because understanding its design is where the story becomes even more fascinating. Flip the coin to the front, the obverse side. Here you'll see the elegant portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, facing right. The design was created by sculptor Arnold Machin, and it became one of the most recognizable royal portraits used on Commonwealth coinage during that era. Around the Queen's portrait runs the inscription identifying her as Queen of Australia. It's a calm, dignified design, but collectors look much closer than most people ever do. They examine the fine lines of the crown, the sharpness of the hair detail, the spacing of the lettering, tiny details most people miss completely. Then flip the coin over to the reverse side. Here you'll see one of Australia's most iconic coin designs, the powerful platypus gliding through rippling water. This beautiful artwork was created by renowned Australian artist Stuart Devlin, whose designs shaped much of Australia's decimal currency. The platypus looks calm, almost playful, surrounded by gentle water rings. But collectors study those water ripples like detectives. Because small variations in strike strength, die wear, and surface texture can dramatically affect a coin's rarity and value. And remember, the coin we're talking about today survived more than 4 decades of circulation. That alone is remarkable. Now let's talk about the physical characteristics, the things you can actually feel in your hand. The Australian 20-cent coin has always been known for its distinctive shape. Unlike smooth-edged coins, it features a scalloped edge with multiple curved segments. When you roll it between your fingers, it feels almost gear-like. It has a diameter of approximately 28.65 millimeters, making it one of the larger circulating coins in Australia's decimal system. The weight sits at around 11.31 grams, giving it a solid, satisfying presence in your hand. Its thickness is roughly 2.5 millimeters, and that thickness, combined with the scalloped edge, gives the coin a wide girth that collectors can recognize instantly without even looking. But what many people never think about is the metal itself. This coin is struck from cupronickel, an alloy made from 75% copper and 25% nickel. That combination gives the coin its familiar silver tone while also making it durable enough to survive decades in circulation. And survive it did. But surviving in great condition? That's an entirely different story. Most 1,980 coins were heavily used. They passed through countless hands, vending machines, wallets, and coin jars. Over time, they picked up scratches, dents, and cleaning damage. And cleaning, this is where many people accidentally destroy a fortune. Let me be very clear about this. Never clean a rare coin. Collectors want the coin exactly as time left it. Natural toning, those darker shades, subtle grays, or slightly golden edges, tell the story of authenticity. They prove the coin hasn't been tampered with. The moment someone scrubs a coin with chemicals or polish, its surface is permanently altered. And thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in value can disappear instantly. That's why professional grading is critical. Organizations like Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Company evaluate coins under magnification, verifying authenticity, and assigning condition grades that collectors trust worldwide. Without that certification, many high-value coins never reach their full market potential. Now here's where things get even more interesting. Collectors searching for rare 1980 20-cent coins often focus on subtle strike characteristics and minting stress signs that occurred during that year's production run. Remember, when mint dies begin wearing down, the smallest details change. Edges soften. Letter spacing shifts slightly. Tiny elements of the design become weaker or stronger depending on pressure during the strike. These microscopic details become obsessions for serious collectors. Two coins might look identical to the average person, but under magnification, one may reveal sharper water ripples around the platypus, stronger crown detail on the queen, or unique surface preservation that dramatically increases its desirability. And when one of those exceptional examples appears at auction, something remarkable happens. The room goes quiet. Collectors stop chatting. Bidding paddles slowly rise. No one wants to blink first, because every serious numismatist understands the same truth. Coins like this do not appear often. Many collectors who acquire a top-tier 1,980 example simply lock it away for decades. They don't sell. They hold. They wait. And that behavior creates a powerful market dynamic. Demand rising while supply shrinks. That's how a simple coin that once bought a bus ticket can transform into a $175,000 silent fortune, hidden wealth, quietly sitting in drawers, jars, and forgotten change piles across Australia. Which means there is a real possibility, right now, that someone watching this video is holding one without realizing it. So here's what collectors recommend you check first. Look at the date carefully. Confirm it reads 1980. Examine the surface under bright light. Look for original toning and strong design details. Check that the platypus ripples and lettering remain clear and well-defined. If the coin looks unusually well preserved for its age, do not spend it. Place it safely in a protective holder and consider professional grading. Because patience in the coin world can turn ordinary change into extraordinary wealth. And what we just talked about is only the beginning. Because the next Australian 20-cent coin on this list shocked collectors even more. A piece so unusual that when one surfaced in a private sale, the numismatic community exploded with speculation. And the reason behind its rarity? Almost nobody noticed the mistake that created it. Until it was already too late. Next up, coin number 2. Let me ask you something that might sound strange at first. Have you ever seen a coin that looked dirty, spotted, even slightly damaged, and immediately assumed it was worthless? Most people do. They glance at it once, wrinkle their nose, and throw it right back into circulation without a second thought. But in the world of rare coins, that exact mistake has cost people small fortunes. Because one of the most shocking hidden treasures hiding in Australian change today is the 1,999 Australian 20-cent coin, specifically the ones showing unusual green and black spotting across the obverse side, often around the portrait area. To the average person, it looks like corrosion, like something went wrong, like the coin should probably be spent before it gets worse. But collectors see something completely different. They see a mysterious surface reaction tied to a unique moment in mint production. And today, a well-preserved 1,999 spotted example in very fine condition has reached market values approaching $163,000. Yes, for a coin that many people mistakenly believe is ruined. And this is why I need to say something very clearly right now. If you ever find a 1,999 Australian 20-cent coin with unusual green or black spotting, especially on the front, do not spend this coin. What looks like a flaw could actually be the exact feature collectors are hunting for. And the story behind it begins in a year that was already unusual for Australia and the rest of the world. The year 1999 sat right on the edge of a global transition. The world was preparing for the new millennium. Governments were upgrading systems, banks were worried about the famous Y2K computer bug, and financial institutions across multiple countries were under pressure to modernize. Australia was also navigating major economic shifts. Technology was expanding, global trade relationships were tightening, and demand for circulating currency remained high as the economy continued to grow. Inside the Royal Australian Mint, production lines were running heavily to keep coins flowing into circulation. The 20-cent coin remained a crucial denomination used across everyday transactions: parking meters, supermarkets, transportation, and vending machines. Millions upon millions were struck. But large production numbers sometimes hide something interesting. When metal blanks are prepared for minting, they go through a series of chemical cleaning and annealing processes designed to create a smooth surface before the coin is struck. In rare circumstances, slight variations in these treatments, or environmental exposure after minting, can produce chemical reactions in the metal that create distinctive spotting patterns. And this is where collectors became fascinated with certain 989 20-cent coins, because some examples began showing unusual green and black surface spots, especially on the obverse, the side with the Queen's portrait. To the untrained eye, it looked like damage. But under magnification, specialists noticed something remarkable. The spotting often appeared embedded within the metal's natural toning, rather than sitting on top, like dirt or corrosion. This meant the effect was likely connected to the coin's original metal chemistry or early surface reaction, not later contamination. And that discovery triggered collector curiosity. Now let's slow down and look carefully at the coin itself. On the obverse, the front side, you'll find the familiar portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by sculptor Ian Rank Broadley. This portrait replaced earlier versions of the Queen and shows a more mature depiction, wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. Collectors often examine this area first. They look closely at the cheek, crown, and surrounding fields, because this is exactly where the unusual green and black spotting tends to appear. Sometimes it forms small clusters, sometimes tiny freckles across the surface. And in certain cases, the spots develop subtle patterns that collectors find incredibly intriguing. The inscriptions surrounding the portrait identify the monarch and the issuing country. But again, what collectors truly focus on is surface originality. Because once someone tries to remove those spots, the coin's value can collapse. That leads to one of the most important warnings in coin collecting. Never clean a rare coin. Those green and black marks that might seem ugly are often part of the coin's natural aging process. Remove them, and you remove the very evidence collectors are studying. Now turn the coin over to the reverse side. Here you'll see one of the most iconic designs in Australian currency, the graceful platypus swimming through rippling water, created by master designer Stuart Devlin. This design has been admired for decades. The platypus appears calm, gliding through the water while circular ripple lines spread outward around it. Collectors study these ripples with incredible attention. Strong ripple lines usually indicate a sharp strike, meaning the coin was minted with excellent pressure and fresh dies. That kind of clarity increases desirability significantly. Now let's talk about the physical characteristics of the coin, because serious collectors know these details by heart. The Australian 20-cent coin has a diameter of about 28.65 millimeters, making it large enough to feel substantial in the hand. It weighs approximately 11.31 grams, giving it a solid metallic presence compared with smaller denominations. Its thickness is around 2.5 millimeters, and the edge features the well-known scallop design, forming curved segments around the coin's perimeter. That scalloped edge gives the coin a distinctive girth and grip, something that makes it instantly recognizable even without looking. The metal composition is cupro-nickel, consisting of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This alloy is extremely durable, which explains why so many of these coins survived decades of circulation. But surviving with unique surface characteristics and strong detail? That's far rarer. Think about how coins are treated in everyday life. They fall on concrete floors. They scrape against keys. They get trapped in washing machines and tumble dryers. They sit for years in jars where moisture, oils, and environmental exposure slowly change their surfaces. And that's exactly why very fine condition examples from 1999, especially those displaying the distinctive spotting collector's track, have become incredibly desirable. Today, when one of these coins appears in the marketplace with strong details, original toning, and natural spotting that hasn't been tampered with, collectors pay attention immediately. The bidding behavior can become intense. Private collectors who specialize in Australian decimal coinage often prefer to acquire pieces like this quietly. They rarely rush to sell them once acquired. Instead, they hold them long-term, locking them away in climate-controlled collections. And that behavior has a powerful effect on supply. Every coin that disappears into a private collection is one fewer coin available to the market. Meanwhile, interest in rare Australian coins continues growing around the world. Collectors in Europe, North America, and Asia have begun exploring Australian decimal rarities with new enthusiasm. And when international demand meets a shrinking supply, prices begin to move. That's exactly how a coin that once sat unnoticed in cash registers can rise toward $163,000 in collector value. A silent fortune, a hidden opportunity that most people unknowingly spend without hesitation. So here are a few critical tips if you ever come across a 1,999 Australian 20-cent coin. First, examine the obverse side carefully. Look around the portrait of the Queen for green or black spotting that appears naturally embedded in the surface. Second, resist the urge to clean or polish the coin. Those spots are part of the story collectors want to see. Third, handle the coin gently and consider placing it inside a protective holder. And if the coin appears to have strong detail with original surfaces, the smartest step is to have it evaluated by a professional grading service, such as Numismatic Guarantee Company or Professional Coin Grading Service. Authentication and grading provide the credibility that serious buyers demand. Because in rare coin markets, proof of authenticity can make the difference between a curiosity and a life-changing asset. But here's the thing most people don't realize. The coin we're about to reveal next is even more unsettling. Because unlike the previous two, its rarity didn't come from spotting, toning, or age. It came from something that should never have happened at the mint. A tiny production anomaly that turned an ordinary Australian 20-cent coin into one of the most shocking hidden treasures still floating through circulation today. And when collectors finally discovered it, the reaction was absolute disbelief. Next up, coin number 3. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a coin worth 20 cents, and unknowingly holding something that collectors would pay $188,000 to own. That sounds impossible. But for one specific coin, the 1,967 Australian 20-cent piece in very fine condition, that situation has happened more times than people realize. Because when Australia first introduced decimal currency in the 1960s, millions of coins were produced quickly to supply the entire country with a brand new monetary system. Most people today assume those early coins are common. But hidden inside those early production years are a few survivors that have quietly become legendary among collectors. And the 1967 20-cent coin is one of them. It's the kind of coin people still find in change jars, forgotten drawers, and old piggy banks. And tragically, many of them get spent again without anyone realizing what just slipped through their fingers. So if you ever see a 1967 20-cent coin, stop for a moment. Look carefully, because you could be staring at hidden wealth. And whatever you do not spend this coin. To understand why this coin matters so much today, we have to travel back to a transformative moment in Australian history. The late 1960s were still part of Australia's massive shift into the decimal currency system, which officially replaced pounds, shillings, and pence in 1966. That change required the production of enormous quantities of new coins so the public could adapt quickly. Factories, banks, shops, everyone needed coins. And that meant the Royal Australian Mint was operating under intense demand. Production lines ran continuously. D's struck thousands upon thousands of coins every hour. Under that kind of pressure, small differences inevitably appeared in the minting process. Dies gradually wore down. Strike pressure varied. Metal blanks sometimes behaved differently under the stamping machines. Those tiny variables might seem insignificant at the time, but decades later, collectors study them with magnifying glasses and microscopes because they can transform an ordinary coin into something extraordinary. Now let's examine this coin itself, starting with the obverse side. On the front of the 1967 Australian 20-cent coin, you'll find the elegant portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, created by sculptor Arnold Machin. This early decimal portrait shows the Queen in a youthful profile, wearing a royal tiara, facing toward the right. The design is surrounded by inscriptions identifying her title and authority as the monarch of Australia. To most people, it's just a familiar image. But to collectors, the smallest elements matter. They study the sharpness of the crown jewels. They examine the Queen's hair strands. They inspect the lettering for crisp edges, because the clarity of these details tells a story about how well the coin was struck and how carefully it survived the decades. Turn the coin over, and the reverse side reveals one of the most iconic designs in Australian coinage. The graceful platypus gliding across rippling water, designed by celebrated artist Stuart Devlin. The platypus appears almost alive, floating calmly as circular ripple lines spread outward in the water. Collectors are fascinated by these ripple lines. On well-preserved coins, the ripples are sharp and clearly defined. But on worn examples, they fade away quickly. Finding a 1967 coin where those ripples remain strong is one of the biggest signs of a valuable survivor. Now let's talk about the physical structure of the coin, the part many collectors recognize instantly. The Australian 20-cent coin is famous for its scalloped edge. Instead of being perfectly round like most coins, it features curved segments around the perimeter, giving it a gear-like outline. That unique edge design creates a distinctive feel in the hand. Even without looking, experienced collectors can identify a 20-cent coin simply by running their fingers along its edge. The coin measures approximately 28.65 millimeters in diameter, making it relatively large compared with many other circulating coins. Its weight is about 11.31 grams, which gives it a satisfying heaviness when you hold it. The thickness is roughly 2.5 millimeters, and combined with its scalloped edge, the coin has a noticeable girth that makes it easy to grip. The metal composition is cupro-nickel, made from 75% copper and 25% nickel. This alloy was chosen for durability, corrosion resistance, and its distinctive silver appearance. And that durability is exactly why many of these coins manage to survive decades of use. But survival alone isn't enough to make a coin rare. Condition is everything. Think about how coins live their lives. They rattle inside pockets. They scrape against other coins. They fall onto concrete floors and metal counters. Over time, those small impacts wear down the design. Edges flatten. Fine details disappear. That's why finding a 1967 coin in very fine condition today is surprisingly rare. The coin still retains strong design features, visible ripple lines around the platypus, and a portrait of the queen that hasn't been flattened by decades of circulation. Collectors value those details immensely. But there's something even more important than condition: original surface quality. Many people make a terrible mistake when they discover an old coin. They try to make it look better. They polish it. They scrub it with chemicals. They remove natural toning. And in the process, they accidentally erase the coin's authenticity. So this is extremely important. Never clean a rare coin. Original toning, the natural shading that forms over time, is something collectors treasure. It proves the coin hasn't been tampered with. The moment a coin is cleaned, microscopic scratches appear across the surface. Experts can see those scratches instantly. And when they do, the coin's value can collapse. That's why professional authentication matters so much. Organizations like Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Company specialize in evaluating coins under powerful magnification. They confirm authenticity, assign condition grades, and seal coins inside protective holders that preserve them for generations. For high-value coins like the 1,967 Australian 20 cent, that certification can make an enormous difference. Because once collectors know a coin is genuine and properly graded, bidding becomes much more aggressive. And that's exactly what has been happening in recent years. Interest in early Australian decimal coins has grown dramatically. Collectors around the world are realizing that the first years of Australia's decimal system produced some fascinating rarities. The 1,967 20-cent coin sits right in the middle of that story. Many examples were used heavily and worn down, but a small number survived in remarkably strong condition. And those survivors are becoming harder and harder to find. Some collectors who own them refuse to sell. They store them safely in vaults and private collections. They wait, because they know something very important. Demand is increasing. Supply is shrinking. And when that happens in the coin world, prices can climb very quickly. That's how a coin originally worth just 20 cents can reach market levels approaching $188,000. A silent fortune. A hidden opportunity that still slips through circulation unnoticed. Which means right now, somewhere in Australia, a 1,967 20-cent coin could be sitting in someone's change jar, completely unrecognized. So here's what experienced collectors recommend you check. First, look at the date on your 20-cent coins. If you see 1,967, pause immediately. Examine the coin under good lighting. Look at the ripple details around the platypus. Check the sharpness of the queen's portrait. Observe the overall surface condition. If the coin appears well preserved and original, place it somewhere safe. Avoid touching the surfaces with bare fingers. And consider having it professionally graded. Because patience in coin collecting often rewards the people who look closely while everyone else is rushing past. And as unbelievable as the value of this coin may sound, this is not fiction. These coins really exist. They are really being collected, and they are still hiding in plain sight, quietly waiting for someone observant enough to recognize them before they disappear forever. Before you rush off and forget about this video, take one last look at the coins sitting around you right now. Seriously, open that coin jar. Check your wallet. Look through the loose change in your car. Because the truth is almost uncomfortable. Life-changing money can hide inside the smallest things people ignore every day. The 1980, the 1,999 spotted coin, and the 1,967 Australian 20-cent pieces we talked about today may look ordinary to most people. They pass through cash registers, vending machines, and supermarket counters constantly. But to the right collector, in the right condition, they represent hidden wealth, a silent fortune that most people accidentally spend. And that's why experienced collectors follow 3 simple rules. First, slow down and check your coins. The smallest detail can change everything. Second, never clean them. Original surfaces, toning, even natural aging can be the very reason a coin becomes valuable. And third, when you think you've found something unusual, get professional grading from trusted organizations like Professional Coin Grading Service or Numismatic Guarantee Company. Authentication protects the coin and proves its value in the collector market. Because patience in coin collecting isn't just a hobby. Sometimes, It's a strategy for discovering wealth hiding in plain sight. So the next time a 20-cent coin lands in your hand, don't ignore it. Look at the year. Study the surface. Notice the details most people miss. Because the coin someone else spends without thinking might be the treasure that changes your life.